Good morning. My name is Richard. Today I'd like for you to consider two different models in buying and selling houses and other residential real estate. The conventional model is the one that I'll describe first. In the past few years, between 80 and 90% of the transactions in the U.S. use this complex model. Let me trace it for you quickly. In the lower left-hand corner, the seller calls a seller's agent and contracts to list the house on the multiple listing service. Then, the buyer and the buyer's agent present offers in the form of a 7-page document to the seller's agent. Once this contract is approved, both parties can engage a seller's broker, contractors, seller's attorney, buyer's attorney, inspector, and buyer's broker. And let's don't forget lender, mortgage brokers, appraisers, surveyors, who can all join the transaction. Any of these parties can remove control from the buyer or the seller and thwart a legitimate transaction. To a buyer and seller, this process can resemble a congressional committee, and communication can resemble the children's version of the telephone game, where each party in the chain becomes less informed. Even subject matter experts, like a home inspector, are limited in expressing their findings and rendering a service, in part because of the relationships with other transaction parties. In the end, the seller and the buyer are not served and provided expertise, but these peripheral parties are typically well paid. Because of the barriers in this crowded transaction and different interests of the parties, ultimately the buyer can't determine the seller's needs and the seller can't determine the buyer's. Ever wonder why most transactions are closed using this complex and expensive method? I believe it's because consumers are generally not informed of the process and because consumers are willing to pay. Most professional sellers, they don't pay for these services. For example, banks who are selling houses will only sell to buyers who have no lenders, no inspectors, no contractors, no buyers, brokers, or agents. Why? Because by avoiding these parties, it's cheaper, faster, simpler, and there's a higher likelihood of the deal working. Next, let's look at some of the decisions that really need consideration in a transaction. To name a few of these, there's price, of course, the property to be conveyed, inspection results, repairs and improvements, value of the appraisal. So how can a seller and a buyer really know how to improve his or the other party's position using this model? The needs of both the sellers and the buyers are not communicated, but too often commissions, other costs, and confusion are allowed. Let's quickly look at a method I prefer. Looks kind of simple, doesn't it? A buyer, a seller, and one agent, like a title company or experienced real estate attorney, who can ensure clear, proper title and proper transaction process. You know, a few weeks ago we purchased a house in a matter of days with no listing, no signs, no inspection, no buyer's agent, no contractors, only a good title company. The sellers were amazed because they got considerably more money at the close with no wait. We would enjoy helping you with your next move.